So while I keep my slides in this mode, probably I may not be in a position to completely track chat messages. So you may have to pardon. So if at all, if you have question, you can switch on your audio and ask the question. And again, once again, I'll request you to switch on your video so that this session can be totally interactive. So let me start with a small story. Actually, recently I went to one of my friend's house. This friend, he has bought two puppies, different breed, right? And he has already named the puppies, but he gave me one opportunity to name what is what. For example, the two names he has chosen was Boba and Kiki, and he asked me to choose which one is going to be Boba and which one is going to be Kiki. So now, right now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pass on the question of my friend to this audience. So you can type in your chat window which one is Boba and which one is Kiki. So there is no further clue. So just by seeing the picture, you can say. So around 30 people are here, right? So let me see how many responses I'm getting. 32 people are here. So if you think A is Buba, B is Kiki, right? So actually Dr. Shankar has given his response. So if you feel the other way, you say that B is Buba and A is Kiki. At least I need 10 response. That will be simple. Pravina, A Buba, B Kiki. Indra Pradeshti, A Buba, B Kiki. Okay. Others. Otherwise, I may have to assume that you are just switched on and join this session. You are not responding. So if you are very much present and alive in this session, please respond to my question. Okay, Dr. Suresh, B Buba and A Kiki. Okay, right. Yeah, let's make it fast. Out of 32 people, 38 people, I only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 responses. Yoga Lashmi, A Buba, Kanya, A Buba, Jimmy, B Buba. Jimmy and Suresh, they are different, they are given different. Okay. Okay. So I need two more responses, at least 10 people. It should touch double digit. Come on, make it fast. Let's make this session productive. Let's not waste time. Okay. Should I have to wait or should we go ahead? So I thought it would be nice if we get two more responses. Okay. B Buba and A Kiki. Okay. Dharmendra, A Buba. Okay. So now three people have given a response which is not aligning with the majority of the participants. So can one of you tell why I chosen B as Buba, Dr. Karyapan or Jamie or Dr. Suresh? One of you. So is audio feature enabled for the participants, Dr. Gladys? Or they have to type in only through chat window? Hello. So is audio feature enabled for the participants? I'm asking the admin.
Yes, sir. It is audible and
Okay,
everything
so
is
can
fine.
one of you, so any one of you, whoever has given the answer, can you give a reason why you have chosen your response like this? Any one of you? Okay, A is fluffy, B seems to be naughty.
Yeah,
Okay,
based on their appearance, we have given. I have given
okay,
myself.
right. So I think uh, so this survey is taken for 100 people. So right now only limited participants are participating. If more than 100 people are participating, almost 98% of the audience would say A is Booba and B is Kiki. So the reason is there is some similarity between the name and the appearance. For example, Booba, this puppy is round and fluffy, which is almost similar to the word Booba. Whereas this another puppy, the numbered as a B, it is spiky and it is having strands, sharp edges. So it is almost similar to the word Kiki, right? Of course, we have freedom to choose whatever. So like Dr. Suresh and others mentioned, so we can choose B as a Booba and A as Kiki. But 99% of the audience will say that A is Booba and B is Kiki. So this is where the human tendency, the human tendency, they form kind of opinion, and whether the opinion is right or wrong, let's see. So almost similar to this, uh, in 2001, a person called Dr. Vilainu Ramachandran, he is in US. He is actually a neuroscientist. He conducted a similar experiment, and he gave this sample to all his audience and asked people to figure out which one is Booba and which one is Kiki. So again, can you make a guess? You can use the chat window or audio. So more or less similar to the previous question. B is Booba and A is Kiki. Okay, so that is what Kanya is saying. That again, B looks like a round object, looks like a amoeba structure. And when I pronounce Booba, so almost it is similar to this. Whereas Kiki, then the starry and the spiky one. So 99, more than 99% of the audience, they have all said like what Kanya has been saying, right? So the starry one as Kiki and the round one as Booba. So what does it mean? So where I'm leading to, so the subject I'm going to talk about is, it is all about impression, right? So whether you want different kind of impression or not, people are going to make an impression, so based on your appearance. So and for several decades we have heard this particular adage. I guess most of you would have heard this adage, right? Or saying, don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a book by its cover. So, what is the actual meaning? So, by seeing the cover of the book, you should not judge the content. The content may be, the cover may not be looking all right, but the content may be insightful, it will be deep. So, that is the literal meaning. But the actual metaphorical meaning is, don't judge a person by their appearance. Suppose if someone is shabbily dressed, don't form an opinion based on their dress. So probably he may be a knowledgeable person. So these are all sayings based on certain context. But in reality, what is happening? In reality, what is happening? For example, if you are interviewing a person, if you are calling a student for counseling, or if you are calling a person for a job, so your very first job is not to select people, but to filter out people, because there will be just two positions and almost 50 people would have applied, right? So instead of selecting the right person, the very first job is elimination process. We are trying to uh, reject some people. So how do we do that? The easiest and the most important task is by judging by their appearance. So though the adage, the popular adage says, don't judge a book by its cover, but in reality, we are going to judge people by their appearance. Do you all agree, or is someone differing? We can discuss. So actually, this popular saying says, always don't judge a book by its cover. That's all. But we remove that word always and say don't judge a book. But in reality, I judge a book by its cover. But don't do that always. There will be some kind of exceptions. This is a popular saying which is suitable for an exceptional scenario. So otherwise, we judge people by their appearance. So any thoughts or any points of discussions here? You can chat or you can use your audio. So far, is it good? Shall we go ahead? Okay. So now when I talk about impression, people form impression not only based on their appearance, there are different parameters. Today, in the next 2 hours, I'm going to talk about 10 different parameters by which a person is going to be judged, right? So always this is important. Today there are seminars happening, one-day seminar happening, or there are special courses happening on personal branding, right? You may be a subject matter expert in your university, college, or in your organization, but people should also believe what you are thinking. So that is where the personal branding is very much important. How that personal branding is achieved through 10 different things, that is what we are going to judge today. So very first one is as I said, we started with appearance. So dress is going to make huge difference on our appearance. We have to dress for success. Image is very important, and people judge you by the way they look on the outside, right? So many a times today there are a couple of organizations, IT organizations, where jeans is allowed. You are allowed to wear t-shirt. So these are all some of the exceptional organizations where they are trying to offset that by uh, actually they are not going to recruit all the people, right? So they are going to select only the talented guys, so to give them some kind of freedom, so they don't have any dress code. But if you are joining in a typical organization, people have to follow some dress code. Dress code does not mean uniform, so people have to come in appropriate dress. So for example, even there are specific dresses for certain professions. For example, the doctors, right? So doctors are supposed to wear the white coats and white pants, and they have to carry their stethoscope. That is going to give them some kind of confidence. Not only for confidence for them, it is also going to give a confidence for their patients. But suppose assume this guy who is a heart specialist, who has put in 30 years of experience, and he has received multiple awards. So does it going to matter whether he is wearing a white coat or a t-shirt or a dhoti and veshti or a shirt? Yes, definitely the dress is going to make a difference. So for example, this is a survey that has been conducted with a set of patients, and the patients were asked to give their comfort level from this Likert scale 1 to 5, right? So when they are satisfied, very much satisfied, they are supposed to give 5, and when they are not comfortable, then they are supposed to give 1 or 2. So when they wear long trousers, long sleeves, or closed shoes, people are given a higher rating. But when they were wearing t-shirts, sandals, earrings, dyed hair, facial piercings, so when a doctor comes like this, definitely the confidence of the patient towards the doctor has come down drastically. So whether the doctor is a male doctor or a female doctor, so we have to wear our dress and we have to look appropriately for our profession. So definitely there may not be any correlation with respect to your subject knowledge and the way you dress, but to give the confidence to the opposite people, we have to wear appropriate dress, right? So any questions so far? Okay, let me move on. So the next one is called the punctuality. So some of them may look very trivial, right? So I may come out with these points which are meant for school kids, but in reality, these kind of things are lacking in several organizations. Even in corporate organizations, people spend so much of time because the meeting starts with a delay of 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and people wait for their bosses to come and inaugurate the session, and so it is almost no disrespect to the people who have assembled in time. So not only we have to start a session and end in time, whether it is a lecture or a public speaking or any kind of event. So this has to happen in a consistent way. So as long as this is happening, then our image or the person's image or impression is going to make a huge difference. And many a times, so when we are late for a meeting or event, right, we always come and come out with our own justification why we are late. So we'll say that the bus is late, or a tire has become flat, or I missed the train. But definitely, if there is a person, genuine person, definitely his conscience will be continuously talking. So what kind of excuse I'm going to give it to my team members or my boss, or after that, after you give the explanation and continuously will be saying, so was it accepted by people? Or but definitely there are few people who are not bothered about punctuality. Okay, let me come as and when, and even they don't feel guilty. I'm not going to talk about such kind of people, but definitely when you are punctual in terms of the start of the event and the end of the event, as well the timeline between the different events, then people are going to respect you a lot. So actually, I am part of an organization called Toastmasters International. This Toastmaster International, the main task of this organization is to improve the public speaking skills and the leadership skills for of the members. Generally, people come and they join primarily, they want to improve their communication skill, but really, so the organization is trying to improve more than their communication skill. It is going to help them to improve their leadership skills. So one of the greatest leadership skills is time management. So over a period of time, these Toastmasters, probably after 1 year, so whatever be the event, whether, so not only in their Toastmaster meeting, even when they go out, so they are so conscious about time, and you will be able to see them see such a lot of difference, right? Only thing, initially you may feel that I am I am in the right venue in the right time, but no one is there. No, there is no one to appreciate it because I am the first person to be there always. But don't bother about that. So initially it will be like that, but over a period of time, you will feel satisfied whenever you are meeting timeline. And within, if you are attending 10 events, every time when you are meeting the timeline and when you are punctual, so obviously people will start branding, saying that so and so is always give respect for others because he or she is always at the specified venue before time, 5 minutes before the event, that person is there. So that means you are not only you are giving respect for the audience. So suppose 50 people are there, 50 people, you are respecting them. But suppose if you are going late for an event, especially when you are the speaker and you are the guest, when you go there 5 minutes late or 10 minutes late and 100 people are waiting, you are actually stealing their time. So 100 people into 10 minutes, 1,000 minutes you are stolen, right? So that is not fair in your part. So you have to be in time. So I think this is an obvious fact. I think all of you would be agreeing with. Then the third one is, whatever be the profession, we have to be prepared for it, right? So when we don't prepare ourselves, then it means that we are not respecting our stakeholders. For example, one is timeline. So timeline is one kind of preparation. Second one is, for example, if I am the event organizer, I have to ensure that everything required for that event to be taken care. For example, mic, the virtual meeting link, and an attendance register, and the bridge details. So suppose if I'm the person responsible, I am supposed to do everything, right? So I have to get a feeling that if something goes wrong, I have to take ownership. Such kind of attitude or such kind of mindset is required when you are focusing on the preparation. People judge you by your preparation, right? So I remember I was actually part of a corporate organization. So my super boss, he was the vice president. But along with him, I have traveled overseas. I have been to Europe, and at least 5 meetings I attended along with him. I attended with him. And at the end of the tour, I was actually taken aback, and my respect towards my boss went up like anything. The reason was not that he was so knowledgeable, not that he was so communicative in front of the customer, but the way he was meticulously taking notes and the way he come prepared for the meeting. Right? He will come with prepared with the agenda and start the meeting in time in front of the customers, and he will start uh, even if the total session is divided into 3 parts, so each part you will start and end in time. And he was 50 plus, so in spite of it, like a school kid, his handwriting will be so neat, legible, and the way he is jotting down the notes in his diary, the customer will be asking him all the questions, right? Actually, there are some questions which are technical in nature. There are some questions which are business centric in nature asked by the customer. But ultimately, within 10 minutes, all the questions were directed towards my boss, because people thought that this person is sincere and he is giving respect and he is listening to all the customers in area. So the way he was preparing himself for the meeting. So preparing yourself for any event, that is going to make a different kind of impression in front of your team members. Then let me move on to the fourth aspect known as listening, right? So let me start with a humorous anecdote. Sometime back, maybe 6 months back, I was reading newspaper. I was reading newspaper, and my entire concentration was in newspaper, from the first page till last page. Every word, state news, international news, all that I wanted to keenly read all of them. Today many people don't read newspaper because of the different kind of social media, so the habit of newspaper reading has come down, but still I keep reading newspapers. So at this point of time, my wife was calling me from the kitchen, and she was saying, hello, yesterday I met Shanti in supermarket. Do you remember which Shanti I refer to? So she was with us in Adayar apartment, remember? Do you remember her daughter Abhinaya? So Abhinaya is getting married, and this marriage is fixed in Hemmalni Kalyan Mandam on Feb 15th. So like this conversation was going on for almost 10 minutes. And after some time, after 10th minute, she became furious. The reason was I was not giving any response. I was talking all along for 10 minutes and you are not all responding and you are busy with your newspaper. Can you tell me what did I say? Now I am asking you, any guess what kind of reply I would have given? What kind of response I would have given? So this is a scenario, domestic scenario. Probably it would have happened in many houses. So I explained this scenario. Now you let me know. So what kind of response I would have given? Okay, Dr. Kolliappan has given some response. So a couple of others. Any others? Anyone else? Okay, you are not listened what I said. Okay. So my wife was telling about a story, an incident about my neighbor and the neighbor's daughter getting married, and the marriage happening in a specific wedding hall on the date of marriage. So this conversation was going on, and I was reading the newspaper. And at the end of this conversation, she made a pause and asked, "You are reading the newspaper, and for last 15 minutes I'm speaking. Are you listening to me or not? Can you tell me what I said?" So at that point of time, what was my response? So that was the question to the audience here. Oh, okay. Not listen to what you said. I'm sorry, Dr. Shankar. I thought you were telling to me, and I repeated the scenario. Okay, my God. Right. Anyone else? So just I got two responses. How many people are here? 44 people are here. This is very challenging, right? So this video conference, generally I find it very difficult to make a presentation for virtual audience. The reason is, people are not switching on their video. So even if they are unable to switch on the video, they have to respond in the chat window. So if both are not happening, so it cannot be a monologue. It cannot be a monologue. So my energy is drained out unless you start interacting. So I'm not sure what you are doing, right? So whether you are attending my session or you are doing something else, like me, like what I did. If you are reading newspaper, I may not know. You have to give some kind of a response. No, I'm just waiting for one or two responses before sharing my response, Dr. Kaliapan. So please bear with me for one more minute, because I want to know whether this audience are listening to me or not. Out of 44 people, I'm getting just two response. So I have taken a couple of sessions for student community 6 months back. I saw the same kind of response, and I was not all happy. But today I am addressing enlightened faculty members. I'm sorry to say that I'm seeing the same kind of response from faculty members also. No reply. When reply by you, then you have no chance to reply. I don't understand, sir. Okay. So what I was saying was, I was able to reproduce whatever my wife was saying, as mentioned by Dr. Kaliapan. I was in a position to reproduce every word of it. So though I was reading newspaper, I could listen to what my wife was saying. Right. So I was being multitasking. Right. So I think some people are able to do that without missing any single word. I reproduce everything: the date of the marriage hall name, the neighbor's name, neighbor's daughter's name, all that I was able to reproduce. Okay. Now, do you think so? Now, what would be my wife's response? So after listening to me, so this is the kind of conversation, and you have to observe the different kind of emotions that people bring in conversation. What could have been my wife's response? So she asked whether I am listening properly, and I was able to reproduce whatever she said without missing a single word. Now, what could have been her reaction or response? So unless we interact and understand these subtle things in the conversation and these anecdotes, no, the the message I am sharing may not reach out to you. So that is why I am insisting on you to respond. So there is no right answer or wrong answer. She would have stared at you. Why? Can you give some rationale?
Maybe she would have not expected that you would listen to the whole story, sir. So
Bingo.
maybe
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. So exactly, you are on dot. So she thought that I was not listening, and at the moment I was able to reproduce everything, she got annoyed, right? So because she was disappointed, I actually, totally misled her. So this is the kind of thing. So actually, though I was not listening, I was not giving an impression that I was listening. So that is where she felt cheated, or she got annoyed. She was taken by surprise, right? So that is where there is a term known as difference between hearing and listening. So I think there are bullet points which gives the answer. So can you share the difference, any other difference between hearing and listening? So hearing is accidental while listening is focused. Hearing is involuntary because uh, the like eyes, you cannot close your ears, right? Unless you use both your hands. So whether you like it or not, all the noises, all the conversations will be heard. But listening means you have to take extra effort. You have to voluntarily, you have to take efforts. Hearing is effortless, whereas listening is intentional. And again, there is one more difference is there. Listening, the difference between listening and active listening. Okay. Now, suppose you are talking to a person and you want to give an impression that you are listening to him, and you don't want to give an impression that you are not hearing him. Then what are all the things you will do? So you want to give an impression because the entire session is all about giving a kind of impression for others. So what are all the things you will do when you are listening? Okay, nod our head. Superb. Pravina has given the response. Nod our head. Yeah, you have to nod our head. So for nodding the head, before that we have to do something else, right? Before nodding our head, we have to do something else. What is that? Today I'm talking about small things which are trivial in nature, but definitely they are going to be essential. I'm not bringing something new concept. So before nodding our head, what are we supposed to do? Exactly. So when we are doing certain activity like reading newspaper, we can keep the newspaper. Suppose if the conversation is important, we can keep that aside and then see their face. First, see their face and look into their eyes. Number two, see their face, look into their eyes. Third one is nodding their heads appropriately, right? So again, appropriately, not artificially. Then there one more thing is there. What else? One more step. That will give immense satisfaction for the other party. So when you do that, people will say, "Oh my God, he's such a good listener." When I go to this professor, so he is totally not connected with my department at all, right? And today he is not all taking any sessions. He only taught me social science in the first year. But every issue I can go to talk to this professor XYZ, and he is a great listener. So what is that one activity that will give such kind of impression? Exactly. In between, we have to share our thoughts. So, in short, instead of this sentence, I can say it is called paraphrasing. Paraphrasing, I think most of you PhD scholars would be knowing. When you are citing literature, you are not reproducing what the author has said, right? You try to absorb something, and then you are trying to, when you do literature review, you say that so and so is saying something. So, like that, when a serious conversation is happening, okay, give me a second. let me make this conversation more clear. So if I understand right, blah 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 blah, I think this is what you said. Am I right? Right? Do paraphrasing. So especially when the conversation goes for 15 minutes or half an hour, especially when some student comes and shares his problem with you, it may be a personal problem or it may be a problem related to a subject, or you are trying to help his personal issues, family background, something, so any kind of issues. So go once in 5 minutes, you stop them and say that, let me understand whether my understanding is, let me clarify whether my understanding is all right. This is known as paraphrasing. When you do this, the confidence level of the opposite party will immensely go up, and they will revere you as their mentor or coach. So this is an important aspect. That's why I have spent more time on it. Then the next element is empathy, right? Today, there is a new concept called design thinking, which is becoming so popular in the corporate world. A lot of startup companies, they start applying the concept called design thinking, through which innovative solutions can be brought out for some problem areas for the customer. And the design thinking has got 5-step process, and I'm not going in depth regarding design thinking, but the very first step and the most important step is empathy towards your customer, or empathy towards your customers. So unless you have empathy, your solution is not going to bring innovation, or your solution is not going to be long lasting. So today, uh, the design thinking has been applied not only for product development, so even it is applicable for your process, right? So for example, if a college or an academic institution is there, so whenever we try to, the end customer is the student community, so or the faculty community. So everything, the management, if they started thinking from their perspective, most of the issues would be sorted out. Let me share a couple of case studies. So there is a organization known as General Electric, GE. So GE, they are also popular in certain equipment manufacturing. They are popular in multiple verticals like what is that? Original equipment manufacturing, industry, compressors, so all that. So they are also present in healthcare. In healthcare, they were the pioneer in developing this MRI scan machine. Out of this audience, how many of you had been to a MRI scan center, either for yourself, or have you ever accompanied one of your family members? If it is so, please switch on your audio and share your experience. What was that experience? So you would have spent a couple of hours there in the MRI scan center, right? So the moment you used to do the registration and come out of the MRI scan center, you would have spent almost more than 1 hour. So how was it your experience? Any one of you? Has anyone gone for an MRI scan? I'm confident that at least one of you would have gone. So that one person, please unmute and share your experience. So I don't want this to be a lecture. So this is going to be a 2 hours workshop, interactive workshop. So only through interaction, this workshop will be successful, and there will be some takeaways for the entire audience. So share your thoughts. So Dr. Kalipan, can you unmute and speak for a minute? So that will be helpful. I saw your response. So these
Sir,
are all the
actually,
guidelines that they are given, but how were you feeling? So that is what I want to know. What was your experience? Yes, sir, go ahead.
sir, actually, we have to be visible and at the same time, it gives us a clear-cut representation what we people expect.
Have you undergone these scans for yourself or one of your family members?
Sir, it's for myself. Even I
Okay.
am now I am under a bed rest only due to an accident.
Oh my
Day
God.
before yesterday
Okay.
only I had the chance to
Oh
know
my
all
God.
these.
So how was the experience when you are in the scan machine?
Sir, while supporting others, I don't feel anything. But when I am getting into the thing, I get little bit frustrated,
Mhm.
and it gives a clear-cut representation of what the things happened in our body, and it clears the doubt which we people have in our mind.
Right. So once you come out of the scan center, have you got a feeling of relief? My God, this test is over. So did you get that kind of feeling?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Kalipan. Okay. So one minute. Right. So the reason why people feel that not comfortable here is one is this room is so sterile, right? So generally, we are comfortable when something is untidy, but when something is so tidy, we feel alienated. Number one. Number two is as soon as you get into the scan center, the technical assistant will come and say that you have to remove your watch, chain, metal, everything, no mobile phone. He gives a complete detailed instruction. The moment you start obeying all this instruction, you feel intimidated, right? So you feel that you are not comfortable, right? Oh, should I have to remove this? Should I have to remove that? Oh, so you feel. Third one is the moment you lie down on the machine and when he is pressing the remote, you are taken inside the scan machine. You get a different kind of feeling, right? So like an electric crematorium, you get, oh my God, will I come back? Will I come back safe? So is it going to harm me? So of course, MRI scan is a non-invasive procedure. Nothing is going to touch you. So not even an injection, nothing is there. So it is a totally a non-invasive process. In spite of knowing all that, we feel not comfortable. Then the most important component is their kind of noises, different kind of noises. So if the scan is going to happen for 20 minutes, every 5 minutes it is going to make a huge noise by the rotation of the magnets, right? Then you'll say, sir, pull your breath, no, leave it. So these assistants will give constant instruction. And the magnets are so powerful. In fact, 2-3 years back, an incident happened in Mumbai. You are not supposed to carry even a single metal object. This young gentleman, he was accompanying his mother for scan center. His mother was a lung infection patient, and his mother was always carrying a oxygen cylinder. So even for the scan center, he was carrying the oxygen cylinder for his mother, but unfortunately the technician has not warned him or given instruction properly. So he was sitting inside the room when the scan was going on for his mother, and he was holding the oxygen cylinder, which is made of iron, right, steel. So the moment that the machine was switched on, the machine is so powerful because of the magnetic power. This young man was caught inside with force, and he got killed on the spot, right? And finally, they arrested the technician, and the hospital was the police was taking action on the hospital, but the life lost is lost. So that is the kind of different kind of feeling people get when they go to scan center. So this guy, Doug Dias, he is the chief technology head for GE Healthcare, and he was instrumental in coming out with the entire MRI scan machine, and he was so proud of his invention or discovery. Of course, it's a team's effort, not individual, but he is the leader, right? He was so happy that without doing so many tests, in a single test, your body can be analyzed. It is going to be helpful for the doctor community as well as for the patients. He was so happy. But the moment he went to a hospital, the doctors gave a what is that positive feedback. But at a particular building, he went there. A lot of noises were there. These noises were coming from a pediatric department, where the children are all taken for the MRI scan, and the children were crying because, as I said, even the adults are scared. The children, obviously, they were also scared. And if this scan is a must, and if the children are not cooperating, then the doctors were sedating. They were putting them into sleep by anesthesia. So at this point of time, Doug Dice, he was totally not satisfied with his own invention. He started empathizing on the end customer. The end customers are young children. My God, these young children are crying. So I thought I have come out with a wonderful gadget or a mechanism, but still these people are crying. I have to do something different. So then he went back and then he started discussing with the team members, but nothing concrete, no concrete idea came out. Then this person joined a course on design thinking in Stanford University. And after the Stanford University's design thinking course, again, he came back and started from the beginning with a different kind of perspective. A new outlook was given. And finally, they came out with a different kind of product that solved the customer's problem to a great extent. Any guess what kind of solution you would have brought in, Doug Dice or his team members? We are all not healthcare professionals, but still you can make a guess. So I'm not expecting you to say, what kind of technology is brought in, but still you can make a guess. So what kind of solution would have solved the problem of the children or the end customer? Anyone? So just to make a guess. So nothing, no right answer, wrong answer. Just to make a guess. So that the session will be interactive. So because of that reason, I must make a guess. Any response? No idea. Right. So the only change that was brought into the machine is the look and feel. So Doug Dice's team made a change in the look and feel. The functional features remain same, but the look and feel was different. And they came out with a storyline. So these volunteers will go and tell the children about a story saying that they are going to take a marine adventurous trip. They are going to take an adventurous trip in the sea. And during this adventurous trip in the sea, every half an hour, these pirates are the robbers, the sea robbers, they are going to come and attack you. So at that point of time, you have to be silent and you have to keep quiet and you have to give an impression that there is no one in the ship, right? That kind of impression you have to give. So, and once the pirate leaves, we will say that pirates have gone and now you can make noise or you can move around. So this kind of storyline was told to the children, and that's how they manage the show, right? Any questions so far? So now at this point of time, the children felt happy, and then there are remarkable improvements happening in the hospital, and the hospitals, they measure their performance through key performance indicators, KPIs. So the number of KPIs that got, so not only this pirate ship, but they also come out with different other styles, right? Like Mickey Mouse amusement park, or Tom and Jerry, Donald Duck. So different kind of themes were brought in, and the entire series of missions, they were called as G Adventure series. G Adventure series that was brought in, So to take care of the children's hospital. And because of this change, the number of sedations brought in, the number of sedations given to the children, they drastically came down. So unnecessarily the children were not given sedation. The number of anesthesiologists visit has come down, because every time when the anesthesiologist is called into the hospital have to shell out huge money. And you know the Western hospitals, for every specialist, the cost is so high. So the number of visit by the anesthesia specialist has come down. And these are all the KPIs that has come down. So what has improved? The number of patients scanned per day has gone up. So for example, if they were if they were scanning 80 children per day, now it has gone to more than 110. And finally, the patient's satisfaction score. So once the patients come out of the hospital and everything is done, the patients are given a slip, but they have to fill up a form, satisfaction survey, right? So please rate whether this experience was good or bad between a scale of 1 to 5. So the patient's satisfaction score has gone up. So all this were shared with Doug Dias, but still he was not so much convinced until he got a different kind of feedback. So on a particular day, he got a different kind of feedback. On that particular day, more than all his KPIs, he was so immensely happy. Any idea, any guess what kind of feedback he got? Again, make a guess. Improved performance. So that is what getting reflected in all this, performance of the hospital. So the number of patients increased, patient satisfaction score improved. So all these are performance related parameters. Anyone else? Accuracy of the results improved. Okay, not really. The actual the feedback that impressed the Doug Dias was when one of the children, actually he was visiting the hospital frequently. One of the children was asking her parents, "Dad, can we come to this place again? Dad, can we come to this place again?" She felt that this is something like a Disneyland or Wonderland, right? So that kind of impression she got. So that is where Doug Dias felt, oh my God, today my customers got a different kind of experience. So I'm not very much bothered about the numbers, right? The patient satisfaction score 3.5 from 3.8, number of patients increased from 80 to 90. I'm not really bothered. So my end patients have felt that this is a place they want to come again and again. So that is how this has become a very popular case study in design thinking. So like that, if you start thinking from customer's point of view, so in this case it is a customer, but when we are this concept can be taken anywhere, right? So we can start empathizing about our students, our own faculty members, our own non-teaching staff members. If we start empathizing with all these members, then we are going to give a different, and again this will not come overnight. So this has to be part and parcel of our everyday activity, right? Okay, now I am going to move on to the next category or the next trait known as clarity. When you have clarity, then that is going to give a different kind of a perception for your audience, right? Whoever is bringing clarity, so that is where we all have experts, right? We all know the basic law terms. But whenever there is a dispute, we go to an advocate because he is the subject matter expert. Whenever we have some challenges, we go to the subject matter expert. But that is all professional subject matter expertise. But as a normal human being, every day we can add on our knowledge by bringing clarity to subtle difference. Okay, let me again start with a very, very simple and interesting anecdote. So I think all of you would have tasted these two dishes, jalebi and jangri, right? So I guess we have audience from North India as well as South India, and everyone in India would have tasted these two sweets. What is the difference between these two? So actually, I went to one of my friend's house, and then his mom come and served jalebi. So one of my friends was saying that Auntie jangri is so good, and no, pa, this is not jangri, this is jalebi. Then there was a huge conversation going on between. So what is it? So I think both are same. Jalebi and jangri are same. And one of my friends jumped in saying, no, 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 jalebi is different, jangri is different. And he started giving details why they are different. Then immediately everyone started seeing him with respect. Hey, my God, I never thought you are such so versatile in cooking or so everyone started appreciating him. So what are all the differences? Jalebi and jangri. Okay, you thought jalebi is jangri is south and jalebi is north. Not really. So now by seeing the picture, can you see the difference? South Indian versus North Indian people? No, no. Okay, let me give the answer. Jalebi is yellow in color. Jangri is orange in color. Jalebi is made of maida, right? Maida, all of you know, the atta. And jangri is made of urad dal. You have to soak urad and then you have to grind it and then you have to do it. Whereas jalebi is done with the maida dal. Then jalebi generally need not have a shape. So people do it in a random fashion. So especially when you go to the chat shops, you know, the jalebi will be in all kind of shapes. Whereas jangri, it is with the proper shape. So you have a circle and the end, the circumference, you will have small circles. You have a defined shape. And jalebi is, the syrup is, it is soaked in the sugar syrup and finally the end product will be crispy. Almost it will be like a murukku. But jangri is soaked in sugar syrup. The consistency is different and the end product is soggy, like a spongy stuff, right? So when I started telling these kind of differences, immediately people started respecting me. Hey, my God, we never thought that you are so an expert, right? So for each and every time, whenever they have doubt on cookery or food items, they started coming and approaching me for clarifications. So this is where, whenever you try to understand subtle difference, especially when two things look like same, and if you are able to bring the such kind of differentiation, then you become an expert. People will start respecting you, and that is where your impression, their impression about you will go up in the highest level, right? Okay, so let me give some more examples. Okay, I think these are all some of the words we started hearing from our childhood days, and we think that both are same, but in reality they are not same. What is the difference between poison and venom? Poison and venom. So even in so when we talk about some person, right? So he is so nasty, crooked, then we say that no, he is a venomous person. Whatever he speaks, they are all poison. So we also give it as an analogy. But what is the difference? Is there a difference at all, or both same? artificial and natural, okay. Human and natural, okay. Mhm. Okay, I think to some extent you are all right. So the basic difference is poison is generally consumed by some person. You know, someone has to go and consume it. Whereas venom is injected, especially by a snake or a scorpion, it is injected. So even you take a poison and then put it through injection, then it can be called as venom. So that is the slight difference, right? Then these are all some of the terms we come across in the newspaper, right? Cyclone hit Andhra Pradesh, whereas in some places they would have mentioned tornado, hurricane, typhoon. Sometimes these terms are different for region to region, but there are so sometimes it is not with respect to regional usage of the language. So there is subtle difference. Cyclone is a heavy wind blowing at a high velocity and hitting major damage, whereas tornado is something like swirling wind. So finally it will form a curtain, a pillar of water, and then which moves on and sucks up whatever the car, buildings, or any other items on the earth. It will take it out. So whenever you start reading a newspaper or come across a new word, or even it may be an old word, try to think twice and find out the exact difference. So generally when you see one word, you will not be able to appreciate. For example, when you see the word poison, immediately you will not be able to think, but you try to look for synonym or the nearest word. So whenever you say poison, immediately someone will say venom, or if you even refer to the online dictionary, it will say venom or something like that. But they are not actually the equivalent words. So there is a subtle difference. If you know the subtle difference, then you will be considered as an expert, right? So whether this is with respect to your own subject, right, the technical subject that you are teaching, or even general knowledge, so people will start respecting you. Then I move on to the next concept known as wisdom, right? So again, taking analogy from the previous example, we have terms like knowledge, we have terms like wisdom. So can anyone attempt to clarify the difference between knowledge and wisdom? Any idea? Probably as a computer science subject, you all would have taught the difference between data and how data is converted into knowledge. I think most of you deal with AI, right? So knowledge is gaining after studying. Okay. Wisdom is inborn. Okay. Okay. So let me give some example, then I'll come back to this. Let me move on. Thank you for your sharing your thoughts. Wisdom is applying knowledge at a purpose. Beautiful, beautiful. So this is the kind of answer I was looking for. So knowledge can be gained through books or experience, knowledge, work experience, skills, all those are knowledge. But you should know when and where to apply it appropriately. That is known as wisdom. Tamil ஞானம். So whereas the next, the knowledge is arivu, wisdom is jnanam. So even those days, we a lot of people with the wisdom were there. So all our stories, folk tale, people like Bearball, people like Tenali Raman, they are all people with wisdom. And even the old grandma in a village, she would not have studied in school, but she has got wisdom because she knows when and where to apply the knowledge. Let me share some thoughts. Actually, when I was a young kid, my mom was preparing fruit salad, and I went to my mom and offered her, "Mom, put this tomato into fruit salad." She was not responding and say, "Amma, tomato is also a fruit. You can put it in fruit salad." What? Tomato for fruit salad? No way. She was busy and she was annoying me. Then I was clueless and helpless. What is this? My teacher told me tomato is a fruit. Why my mother is not putting that in a fruit salad? So at that point of time, my dad stepped in and said, Sundar, knowing tomato is a fruit is knowledge, but not to put it in fruit salad is wisdom. Knowing tomato is a fruit is knowledge, but not putting it in fruit salad is wisdom. Have you ever tasted a salad with a fruit salad with a tomato? So most of the time we would have taken a fruit salad in a wedding dinner, or rarely we take it in a fruits, what is that, juice stall. Juice stall, we go and take fruit juice, but rarely people take fruit salad. But we would have consumed fruit salad in a wedding dinner, right? But have you ever seen a tomato along with the pineapple, mango, banana, grapes? No, right? So no one, there is no hard and fast rule, but the intuitive mind says that tomato cannot be put. So the taste will be different and it will not gel. So technically, you can say that tomato is a fruit. So, but still you cannot put it. So like that, the worldly knowledge, our what is that? We, if you without blindly applying your knowledge, then you can bring out wisdom. So let me give another example. Actually, my mom was a pensioner and she was drawing two pensions because of my father was also a pensioner. My father was a school teacher, a headmaster, and my mother was a school teacher, and the father passed away. So my mother was drawing her service pension, and she was also drawing her family pension. I think most of you are aware that as a pensioner, every year you are supposed to give a life certificate. You have to go there, physically go there and sit in front of the treasury officer, and they will take a picture. Or you have to go to a doctor and get a form filled in, gazetted officer who will sign saying that so and so is alive, right? So the idea is government's funds should not be wasted. Suppose if the pensioner has died, the pension will be stopped. So the government wants to ensure that the pensioner is alive. So they brought in the life certificate. So for some time, my mother could not go there, and she got a life certificate from a doctor, and I sent it by registered post. But this has to be done in a particular month. I think in the month of May or so, you have to do it within a cutoff date. If you don't do that, if you don't submit that, then your pension will be stopped. So actually, the next month when my mother was going through the passbook, she was totally taken aback because one of her pension was not coming. So both of us are puzzled. And we went to the pension office, and the pension officer asked for details of her pension pay order, and then entered the PPO order, and went through the system, and finally said, "Madam, you have not given your life certificate." What? Have I not given life certificate? I gave it in the month of May. May 10th, I gave it, and my son posted by registered post. We want to see the acknowledgement copy. Immediately, she wanted to take it out from the bag. But he said, wait, ma'am. See here, you are drawing two pensions. One pension for your service pension, and one pension for your husband's service, which is known as family pension. And you are given life certificate for only one of them. So that is why that pension you are getting. The other pension, you are not given life certificate. So that's why we have stopped it. Sir, what is this? What is this tamasha going on? The person concerned is sitting in front of you, right? And she has, for the sake of compliance, she has already given one life certificate. And now, even after seeing her, you are insisting on the second service pension. So these were all the thoughts in my mind-wise. I could not ask that guy because he is a government servant. He said, sir, rules are rules. This is a government office. If you don't give two life certificates, if you give only one life certificate, only one pension will be given. So if you want to both the pensions, you have to give two certificates. Then that is where I realized people think this tomato is a fruit and they can put it in fruit salad, blindly applying knowledge, right? So, but he will give a lot of justifications. He will give a lot of justifications saying that as per government rule, I have to insist for this. If I don't do this, my boss will question and my boss will give a memo. But what will a person with the wisdom do? So instead of arguing or instead of doing all this with the pensioner or his customer, what he will do is he will go and talk to the boss, or he will, the monthly meeting, he will say that, sir, if pensioner is submitting one life certificate, that is more than enough. So let us make some kind of amendment. He will escalate it to his boss and he will start. So now think about that empathy part. So if you are empathizing with the end customer, you will internally discuss and come out with a solution. So instead of that, most of the time, the government organizations or the service companies, for example, you go to a mobile service provider, you are not happy. So they will blindly say all the rules. No, sir, that officer is not there. He's on leave. Come tomorrow. The next day you take another day off and you go there. He'll say, no, today he has gone for head office for a meeting. Sir, you only asked me to come next day. Sir, I cannot help you. So I never knew that you will go for a meeting today. So that is the kind of response they'll be giving. So you never apply knowledge, nor you are empathetic. If you start being empathetic and if you start applying wisdom, then the impression on you will go up like anything. So these are all some of the subtle differences. Then integrity. How much time I have? Another option. Integrity. Okay. So again, there are loosely used terms known as honesty and integrity. So now coming back to the clarity aspect, can anyone tell me the difference between honesty and integrity? Honesty and integrity. He is a person of full integrity. He is an honest person. We have come across these statements. What is the difference between honesty and integrity? Okay, let me give the definition later after sharing an anecdote. One day I was in a hurry to go to my office. So I was working in a petroleum refinery. The office general shift will start at 7:30. So morning around 6:45, 6:30 or 6:45 I have to leave. I was in a hurry. My carpool mates are waiting. I was in a hurry. While I was wearing my shoes and socks, my wife was saying, Sundar, your socks, they have holes, hole in the socks. Be careful. You wear different socks. And then I said, no, already time is 6:45. I am in a hurry. I cannot spend time in choosing another pair of socks. After all, the socks, they are going to be in my shoes. Who is going to see it? So I said that and then immediately left for office. So office, everything was going smooth. Around 9 o'clock, I got a mail saying that from HR department saying that, so I request all of you to assemble at training center. Today we are going to have a special training program. So it is called the laughter yoga. So the laughter yoga will be conducted by one Mr. Siripananda. You all come and assemble. So everyone was curious. No, this is a different kind of training program. Let's go there. And immediately, without any exception, all of us, we assembled at 9:55 at the training center. So at the training center, inside all the tables, chairs, everything was removed and there was a carpet, jamakalam. Okay? So people are supposed to do yoga sitting on the ground level. So obviously people left their shoes on the outside of the training center. Now see here, now I am wearing a socks with a hole. If I remove the shoes, the hole in the socks will be visible to all the people. So imagine my plight. I was cursing myself. My God, I should have listened to my wife. So then I tried to remove my socks also. Then this faculty, the faculty was Mr. Sripananda. He said, sir, no problem. Everyone is coming with your socks. You can also come with your socks. No problem. Not at all an issue. Just to remove your shoes and then. Now I have to manage this situation. I have to say something different. Right? Now I said, no. Yes, training center is almost like a temple for me. I cannot come even with socks. And you are going to do yoga. Yoga is also again, I feel that there is a religious connect. I don't want to come with my socks. Then I try to do artificial namaskaram in front of the training center and then removed my socks and then came inside. To 2 hours, the next 2 hours, it was full of a riot of laughter. So we were laughing anything. Everyone was thoroughly enjoying. But my mind was on my socks with a hole. What if, suppose if the office boy comes and then sees my socks and says, so I asked sir in the water socks, whose socks is with a hole? Suppose if he is asking in front of all the people, what will happen to my plight? So these kind of thoughts were going on and I could not enjoy the session, right? So whenever we do something not on par with the external world, whenever we do something uh, totally not aligning with our conscience, then we feel not comfortable. For example, people fudging their bills, medical bills, right? Medical reimbursement. You buy something and then submit that. No one will be noticing that, but your own conscience will be noticing it. So your own conscience is like a CCTV camera, which is operating 24/7. For example, either you copy in the exam or you allow a student to copy in the exam. If you are a genuine person, your conscience will not allow you to have a peaceful sleep. This CCTV camera, you cannot switch off, you cannot change the angle, you cannot put a lid on it. So if it is an external CCTV camera, then probably people who wants to do some wrong things, they can always break open or disconnect the power supply and do everything. But this CCTV camera, you cannot switch off. So now let me come back to that question, the difference between honesty and integrity. Honesty is doing the right thing. Honesty is doing the right thing. But integrity is doing the right thing again and again, even when no one is watching. Even when no one is watching, if you do the right thing, the external world will come to know about it one day. It may be tomorrow or day after tomorrow. One day they will come to know. I will give him a task, sir. I don't have to supervise him. He will do it on his own. And he will come in day shift, morning shift, evening shift, but he will ensure that things are taken care. I totally believe him. So that is how a lot of leaders have groomed up. No, the number one leader would have been delegating a lot of tasks to him. To big important tasks will be given to people who have built such kind of credibility, such kind of impression. How do you form that impression? That cannot happen overnight. So not by doing just the honest things. You have to have integrity. That is, whether someone is watching or not, you have to do the right things again and again. Then definitely the external will come to know about it. And that is where impression will go. The penultimate one is versatility. So many times from young days, I used to have a lot of multiple hobbies. I think we have another half an hour, right? Okay. In next 10 minutes, I'll complete. I used to have seasonal hobbies. For 3 months, I used to play kite. And after that, then different hobby like a top. Then after some time, then hiking, going on cycle for here in the hilly stations. So like that, the hobby will keep on going on. So people were not bothered. But after some time, my parents started saying that, Sundar, you start focusing on one thing. If you do multiple things, then people will call you jack of all trades and master of none. Jack of all trades, master of none in the negative connotation. So you try to specialize something. But again and again, when I start focusing on one thing, for example, for some time I was doing oil painting. But after some time, it started boring, and then I switched over to something else. And again, people are telling me that you have to start focusing on things. So in this point of time, I also come across a lot of polymath. Anyone knows the meaning of polymath? Who is called a polymath? And can you give an example? Polymath. Versatile worker. So actually a person who can do multiple things, right? So they are not jack of all trades, but they are all experts in many fields. The popular celebrities or actor Kamal Hassan, right? Actor Kamal Hassan can sing, he can direct, he can do screenplay, he can do dancing, or the actor T. Rajendran, or the popular Tamil writer known as Sujata. Probably some of you would have heard about Sujata. He is a great novelist, great short story writer. He has written screenplays. He has directed some movies. He has produced some movies, and he has been an electronic engineer who was instrumental in coming out with yes, Polyman, who has played a crucial role in the electronic voting machine. And yet another polymath is Dr. Balamurali Krishna. Dr. Balamurali Krishna is a very popular Carnatic music singer. He is also an instrumental player. He used to play an instrument called the viola, something similar to violin, bigger than violin, viola. And Dr. Balamurali Krishna has also sung playback music in films. For some films, he has sung playback music. So after seeing these popular celebrities, so when those people are doing something, then why not I do this? But no one was encouraging me. So people say, those are all different kind of people, but you start focusing on one thing. And even when I joined a corporate organization, so for example, I was part of almost 20 years back, I joined an IT organization. I was a part of the energy and oil and gas vertical. And my boss asked me to come out with a different kind of IT solutions for the oil and gas industry. Then immediately I came out with a long list saying that asset management system, laboratory information management system, then plant automation system. So for each one of them, what are all our strengths, weakness, what are all the software tool expertise that we already have. So already the company was having that kind of expertise, but we have to go to the market with our case studies kind of stuff. So I prepared a comprehensive list. But again, my boss said that, no, this will not sell. So you have come out with the 10 or 20 different offerings. So it's very difficult to take it to market. So you just come out with just 2 or 3. I said this oil and gas value chain is very complex and I cannot decide the top 3 or something like that. So I have to come out with a laundry list. You have to accept it, my boss. But he was not accepting me. So again, even after coming to a corporate world, this kind of conversation was going on, whether to be a jack of all trades or a master of one thing. Is it possible to? So at this point of time, one day I was taking a stroll. I was going for a walk in my neighborhood locality. I am staying in the center of the city, a place called Arepuram. I used to go for a 8-kilometer walk. One place I visit is this YMCA ground in Nandanam in Chennai. So this is a sports college. I used to go through that. And at one point of time, I saw there is a huge group of people doing some activity. So actually they were all practicing for archery. These sports college students, they were practicing for archery. The coach was saying that, standing there giving them instruction. And these students, they were fresh students. And for that particular class, they were all fresh. And each one was directing this arrow, bow and arrow. And some of the arrows were going in totally a different direction. And I was totally, nervous whether some arrow will come and hit me. So I was like a silent spectator. I was watching this. I was doing this. And some people were trying to exactly hit the bullseye and they became so nervous and finally they even could not do it. So at that point of time, this archery coach was saying that, see here, this bullseye, this board has got several rings. If you hit on this outer ring, you will get 5 points. Then the black ring, if you hit, is 6 points. Then blue ring, 7 points. Then red ring, 8 points. The center yellow ring, if you hit, then 10 points maximum. But you are all novice, you are all amateurs. On day one, don't try to aim the yellow one. So totally you will be stressed out. At the same time, don't aim somewhere else. Don't aim out of the board. Aim within the board. Let it hit somewhere. So it is no problem. Even if you get 5 points, okay, 6 points, okay. But over a period of time, your own mind or your own brain will say how to hit the central bullseye so to become a champion. So only when you hit the central bullseye, you will become a champion, right? On day one, never try that, and slowly you do that. But at the same time, don't hit outside the board. So at that point of time, then I got a feeling that he was indirectly saying a message to me. When you want to be jack of all trades, don't do random things, 10 different things. At the same time, don't focus on one thing and get stressed out, right? So if you want to totally be a full-time professional like Sachin Tendulkar, you can bunk your school, you can don't bother about your college education, and 24 by 7 you can become a cricket star. But we are all average people, so our parents, our society will not allow us to do that. So if we start doing that one single thing and start taking it up, we'll get stressed out. Even when you take all the champions and these kind of people, so we think that they are reached the pinnacle of life. But if you ask them, they will not have time to spend with their family members. They will not have time to do their whatever they wanted. So 24 by 7, they have to do all that. So of course, that has got positive aspect in terms of money and the glory and the fame. But sometimes you may lose a piece of life. So rather than, so there is a midway path. So you don't focus on one thing and get stressed out, or do multiple things and lose your track. Rather than that, do 3 or 4 things. Whenever you get bored, for example, all of us can have hobbies. The hobbies can be blogging. So do blogging, and if it is boring, then you go and do oil painting, and if that is boring, then you go and sing a song or play a musical instrument. Have 2 or 3, and finally at one point of time the mind will say where your strength lies. So this is where people say that your knowledge should be inch wide and miles deep. So you can always, it is like a T model which has got a smaller horizontal line but a longer vertical line. So your expertise should be in both. So you can have exposure on 3 or 4 things, but in one particular subject, you should have deep knowledge. So if you say this to your own students, so that they will have multiple talents at the same time, at one particular subject, they will become an expert. So on that particular day, I got the advantage of having a polymath, or advantage of having multiple exposure is, in organizations, you will be able to respond most of the questions. So if you say that, no, I'm only specialist in coding. I don't know what is AA. I don't know what is ML. I am only a coder. I don't know anything beyond that. I can write only algorithms. I don't know anything else. Then your dependency level has come down. But you be an expert coder, but you also understand 3 or 4 other relevant subjects, then people will depend on you, and then you will be respected and rewarded. So this is so Western world, they have a different thought. Even you say that, there used to be a popular joke saying that gone are the days where we have ENT specialist. We have only now eye specialist. We have only nose specialist. We have only throat specialist. Even in the nose specialist, left nostril one specialist, right nostril different specialist. So when we have such kind of world, then it is very difficult to move along. So when you are having a generic expertise and deep expertise in one field, you will be helpful for the entire community and your own stakeholders. The last one is motivation. So World War time, so Second World War time, Dr. Beecher was working in the camp, and he was helping the wounded soldiers. Soldiers were keeping on coming, and Dr. Beecher and his team members were giving sedatives. They were treating them. So at that time, they were using one particular drug called morphine. Morphine was trying to put down the pain of the soldiers. So it is like a sedative. So it will numb the pain in the nervous system. But these soldiers were keeping on coming. The morphine was running out of stock. So at that point of time, one of his nurses did something different. Any guess what she did? Just to make a guess. So since the morphine was out of stock, she took plain saline water from the syringe and she started administering to the wounded soldiers instead of morphine. What would have happened next? What would have happened? What could be the response from the soldiers, wounded soldiers? At least one response I want. They would have felt better. Okay, how? Indra Priyadashini, you said that they would have felt better. How?
They thought that they actually injected with the
Morphine.
right thing.
Yes, exactly. So they were not crying. So the people who were not yet injected, they were crying. But people who were injected, whether with the morphine or the saline water, they were not crying. So that point of time, Dr. Beecher felt he was surprised and he was taken aback. Then after this medical camp, he went back and he started doing extensive research and then finally came to know that even a dummy medicine can do wonders. So then he gave a new name called placebo. Placebo means it's a Latin word to please. So if you try to please something, then the required action will happen. So today the word placebo is used in pharma industry heavily, right? A dummy medicine. So for example, whenever a new drug is invented, they will divide the control group of a test audience and one set will be given the actual drug, the other set will be given the placebo, the dummy medicine, and they will find out what is the side effect or something like that. So this concept of placebo, that means in the name of the original medicine, even if you give a dummy medicine. So in fact, I am able to, even in villages, right? So they have a lot of some religious practices. So for example, they say that this is a soil from this particular temple, you just put it in your mouth, it is going to cure you. So if you have 100% faith, it is going to cure you. So if you start questioning, definitely it may not question. So I'm just trying to bring an analogy between placebo and motivation. Actually, when I was in class 10, my math teacher conducted a test. And at that point of time, the new mathematical system was brought in and people are finding it difficult and even the teachers were not confident enough to teach these new concepts of maths. So at one period, the class teacher will come and distribute the answer sheets. And at the point of time, a lot of discussion will happen. My math teacher, Mr. Krishnan, was distributing all the answer sheets. And out of 30 people, 21 got failed. And only 2 got passed. And out of the 2, one was me and another one was another person. So and then my parents were teachers and my mother is a math teacher and she used to give me a lot of homework. So I was able to manage. But the teacher got puzzled to see the other person. He said, friends, the students, today in math class, everyone failed. But only 2 people have got high marks, not even high marks. Both of them got sent up. And one of them is a son of a teacher, our own headmaster. So today I'm not going to talk about me. He was not talking about me. I'm going to talk about Mr. Tangaraj. Tangaraj, he used to walk 5 kilometers from his village to the school with a barefoot. And he used to go back another 5 kilometers. Daily, 10 kilometers he is walking up and down. And his parents are not educated. But he has also got sent up. I think he deserves a tremendous standing ovation. So I think we have to give. So he started appreciating Tangaraj like anything. And what do you think? What will be the mood of Tangaraj? What will be his mindset at that point of time? For the very first time he is appreciated like this. So you all may think that Tangaraj was in cloud nine and he was elated, excited. No. So though he was smiling, actually his inner conscience was telling himself, hey Tangaraj, do you deserve all this praise? You just simply copied the person who was sitting in front of you. So actually Tangaraj was copied me and he got all the answers right. Master was not aware of it and he started praising him like anything. But that moment changed his life. That particular incident turned around his thought process. So he felt so guilty and so my God, now I have to keep up my expectation. Second thing, so if by copying itself I am getting this much of pleasure, suppose imagine that I actually study well and then see he started focusing on all other subjects beyond maths and he started coming out with flying colors. And when most of the classmates, because most of them they are all rural background and they were not having enough awareness, most of them they will go and do some job like farming and other thing. This person, he joined, he completed his graduation. I'm talking about a story which has happened almost 30 years ago. This person wrote the bank exam and then he became a bank officer and today is in a very respectful position. So the reason was a motivation which he didn't deserve, but still it worked like a placebo. Like how a dummy medicine can do wonders when it is given in the name of the original medicine, it can do miracles. So that is how it transforms people. Sometimes you don't have to see the exact merit of a person to appreciate him. So randomly you appreciate. So this is what even Dale Carnegie says in his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. When you say a person in a positive phrase, he will, even if he is not so, he will transform into. For example, if you say that, if you see one particular student coming on time, if you start saying that, I see you coming always in time, I appreciate that. So in spite of your poor background, I see the sincerity in you. So when you give such kind of placebo-like appreciation, that can do wonders. So that can also, people transform into their life. So these are all some of the thoughts and ideas that is going to totally give a different kind of impressions as long as we sincerely follow them. People say that don't judge a book by its cover. That is only for exceptional cases. But in reality, we judge every book by its cover. Whenever I go to library and if I have to borrow 3 books, I don't have time to go through all the books by going through their contents. Right? I just randomly pick a few books and the cover that is going to give me kind of an impression. So based on that, I'm going to decide whether I need to borrow that book or not. Sometimes I may be disappointed, but most of the time my judgment will be right. So do judge a book by its cover. That is why they have that. So you never have a second chance to make a first impression. People say that first impression is the best impression. So always try to give the first impression, the best impression, not just by appearance, but by following these 10 different principles. Try to be punctual, try to be preparing yourself for the event, try to show empathy, try to apply wisdom and motivate people. So like that. So most of you would be knowing it, but today only I have packaged them and then try to give it in the form of a nutshell. So with that, let me conclude my session. And I think we have 9 more minutes for Q&A. Thank you so much for making this session interesting.